All right, so I'm Mike Black. I work here at NCSA as Assistant Director and a Postdoctoral Research Associate for the Institute for Computing in the Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. And I specialize in text analysis. I work a lot with faculty who don't have a background in computing, so what I try to do is translate their research questions into something that we can do here using the campus cluster or by leveraging Exceed resources from around the country. I'm working on a variety of projects right now. 3 of these are with faculty here at UIUC, and one of them is one that I'm working on my own. I won't tell you a whole lot about these since I only have 5 minutes, but I will say that the one thing that binds all these projects together is that I'm working at scale. So for example, working with literary and journal articles from HoneyTrust and JSTOR, that 800,000 estimate's probably lowballing that a little bit, it's probably higher. Working with faculty at the law school where, I don't know if you're familiar with how federal policymaking works, but agencies can propose rules which have to be subject to public comment for a given period of time. There's 300 of these proposed rules or rules documents coming out each day, and in addition to each one of those, they can be attached to as many as 1,000 comments in the form of PDFs. Working with another law school faculty member to study bankruptcy documents. These come out through the PACER system. They are PDFs that have not really been tagged at all. They're only indexed by the petitioner's name and the district that it's filed in. So we're trying to go through, and so far, each year they've been able to index about 300 or so. We're trying to scale it up into the hundreds of thousands. And finally, I've been working on projects to study the history of software. Currently working with code to Mozilla software, extending all the way back to the open sourcing of the Netscape client 15 years ago. For all these projects, the workflow is basically the same. We go through some systematic gathering process. We then try to enrich the metadata. That could be tagging the text files themselves or compiling a database with information about all the files. From there, we do a process that combines tokenization with filtering out noise or other data we're not interested in, to feature extraction, and then finally post-processing. But because humanists and social sciences really value the interpretive process, often this workflow is cyclical. So we'll look at the results. We'll find maybe that the patterns that we're seeing aren't very useful for the questions that they're asking, so we'll adjust the filtering or the tokenization process and try again. So just briefly, this is kind of what a workflow looks like. You have a plain text, we get a vector space representation of it, and from there, depending on what sort of metadata we have, we can either do some clustering, or if we have them organized by year, we can actually see how things change year to year, how certain concepts or features grow or disappear from a given corpus. This is a glimpse of some of the bankruptcy documents I'm working with. These are from the same form, and even though there's a bunch of different forms that have different table layouts, one of the big problems is that same forms may be generated differently. So as you can see here, some fields have multiple entries, the spacing's different, the table's actually rendered on the top one but isn't really rendered on the bottom. I have a collection of tools which I've developed for these projects, extracting and collating files from large database collections, segmenting them for part of speech tagging and named entity recognition so that we can decide, say, maybe filter out all the verbs and only do analysis on nouns, or remove all proper names. Especially tricky in fiction. Character names tend to group up a lot when we're doing topic modeling analysis, so it's good to remove those. Basic tokenization and stemming. One of the main things, though, that is very important is the mallet toolkit, which is what a lot of people use for machine learning projects using natural language. Outputs its data in human readable format, but it isn't very useful for actually doing post-processing. So I've written or wrapped around that library a framework that outputs it in a form that can easily be used in R or other visualization software. Trying to think about what BrownDog could do to help projects like these or others in the humanities. I feel like DAP could be very useful for handling heterogeneous file formats or heterogeneous forms in documents like PDFs. There's a lot of basic work that takes a lot of time that something like DTS might be able to speed up if it's able to leverage high-power computer resources. For humanists that are interested in trying some of these projects but don't have computing resources, there's a lot of simple feature counts that extractors could produce and make available. You could also be able to import output from Mallet and make it more useful or rarely present visualizations. So the last thing is just that a lot of data in the humanities and social sciences is often sensitive, either under copyright or under IRB, and that's something I really hadn't seen BrownDog talk about. Hopefully that's something you all can address. Thanks.